I'd love to get started. For
Let's
everybody
do
who's
it.
just joining us now, this is our joint Substack live between the Angler and Sasha Pieterse of Pretty Little Liars fame, and who today is launching her own Substack. And does the Substack have its own separate name?
Yeah, it's Sasha Says.
Sasha Says. Okay, I saw
Yeah,
that was the title of the post. I was wondering if that was the title of the Substack. I love it. It's good.
that's nice. Thanks. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about Sasha's career in the industry, her pivot away from the industry, and everything that's next for this next chapter, which is really exciting. I know you're the co-founder of Hippie Water. You have your own podcast, Women in the Nude. You've already got this business and media empire building, and I'll be very curious to hear how the Substack plays into it. But
Oh, for sure.
before we talk about Sasha Says. Would love to do a retrospective of your career. You've got a lot of fans here who I'm sure already know way more than I do. But for any newcomers and anyone on the Angler side, you've had such an interesting career and a long career, a decades long career
Yeah,
already. And it started when you were 4 years old, right?
correct. Yeah, and most people retire after 25 years and at career, and here I am, still kicking. And I love acting. I love producing. I'm so involved in that, and it's just an extended passion. I want to direct. There's a couple things that I'm in the middle of producing right now, and so it's not that that has gone away. It's just it's expanded, and I feel like I bring a unique maybe view on storytelling on both the business side as an entrepreneur, but also in the brands that I pick as a venture partner. And you kind of just throw everything that you know into those sides of business. And I didn't realize how similar all of that was until
Mm,
I started branching out into business. And there really are a lot of synergies. And it's just exciting. It's an addition rather than a distraction. And I love it. New
that's
passions.
interesting. So it's not so much a pivot away from Hollywood as an expansion of your career path, then, really.
Yes, exactly.
So tell us a little bit about what it was like starting out at 4 and famously filming the pilot of Pretty Little Liars at 12.
Yes. So I got into the industry, I guess, kind of by accident. I'm from South Africa. My parents immigrated over to the States when I was around 3.5. They were professional dancers, so they had a taste of the entertainment industry, and friends of theirs had their son in the industry. So she took some photos of me and was like, she likes it. Maybe you send it over to my son's agent, which we did, not thinking much about it. And so they signed me, which, as every actor in Hollywood knows, that's the hardest part is to get an agent.
Mhm.
It's, I think, very much easier when you're younger, but it was all about fun. It was, photo shoots, commercials, but we were in Vegas at the time. So my parents were driving back and forth for auditions, which is a lot.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Huge sacrifice to move to California. I just kept on loving it. And I was really lucky to get my first TV show when I was 5. I was working with Tim Curry and Gary Cole. And
What was the show?
it was called Family Affair. So
Okay.
it was a remake of the original. And you know what? It was really, really fun. I played a twin, and it was just, a first taste of the industry.
Wait, so
But
if you played a twin, you were doing, because usually it's the other way around with kids. You have a twins who
yeah,
play one kid because of the child labor laws and like the time constraints and
it
things.
was a boy. So I had like an
Oh,
identical,
okay.
but
All right.
yeah. I guess not identical, but so I had a brother. But we were on at the same time as Friends. So
Okay.
obviously that was like a disaster. You're not going to win against Friends. But it was a really great learning experience. And Gary and Tim were just incredible people, and they really just kind of took us under their wing and were so gracious. And so that ran for a season, and I just fell in love with that part of the industry and kept going and was lucky to just consistently get work. My first movie was Shark Boy and Lava Girl, which
Nice.
it's gotten a
A
resurgence, which is so
classic.
interesting. I have so many adult men being like, "That was my favorite movie growing up," and that is a weird thing now. And then, yeah, like you said, by the time I was 12, I did Pretty Little Liars. That was the pilot episode. And by the time we did the first season, I was 13 and I graduated high school so I could work as an adult. I did the
Oh,
very
man.
classic, child actor thing, but I was lucky to have a good experience, mixed in with some interesting things, but for the most part, I got out unscathed. And I just love it. I love being on set. I think that's the thing is that it's my happy place. It's
Mm.
like summer camp. I love just, getting to know crew and the process of making it rather than a lot of the other things that come with the industry. And I love knowing what everybody does. I love supporting people and figuring out, now as an adult on the producer side, how to make everybody's lives better and how to run something successfully in a way that supports everybody involved, which is a challenge, but one that I always love and I'm up for. I'm actually currently in the middle of editing a film that I did with our director and our editor. So as soon as
Are
we
you
go,
are you in the edit bay right now? Is that where you're dialing in from?
I am in the living room next to the editing room. Yeah, so
Oh,
I'm
amazing.
chatting with you in between. So yeah, I really do. I want to be involved as much as I can, and I just have a love for every side.
Mm. Now, your new Substack, really focuses on women's health, their mental health,
Yeah,
for like a personal investment that they're making in themselves. And I wonder, young women who are looking to follow in your footsteps as an artist and as an actor, walk us through a little bit what that was like finding fame at such a young age. And like 2010 social media was a different beast from what it is now, but 2010's like tabloid media was also
yeah,
ruthless back then.
yeah, absolutely. It was a unique journey. In so many ways, we were really lucky. Twitter had just taken off, and we were the first show to live tweet, and we really had access to people all over the world. That was an incredible thing, and because our show was a book before it was a TV show, we had built-in fans, which was really nice. And with that also came a lot of opinions because, of course, your favorite book you want it to turn into the TV show that you love. And they had made some casting decisions that weren't exactly like the characters in the book. And so I think initially there was also that pushback, but it created buzz, which is exactly what you
Right.
want.
Is this the Allison that you have pictured in your mind?
Right, which actually I fit that description pretty decently. Shay's character, Emily, I think was a redhead in the book. So, just little differences. And I mean, obviously everybody ended up loving Emily, Shay. And so it very quickly took off. I don't know if we would have had the same success if it wasn't for that particular moment in TV history. And I don't say that as a knock against our show. It's just that there's so many things out there now. But we were kind of that last 24 episode series. And it was really interesting to make that transition of loving what I'm doing, but not necessarily being really recognized for it to that first moment of being recognized, which happened before the show came out. I was sitting on a patio at a restaurant and somebody walked by and was like, "Are you the girl from Pretty Little Liars?" And we hadn't even launched yet. It was just from our
Oh,
promos.
wow.
And so, yeah, I mean, I was 13 going, that is really weird, but
That's
maybe this is,
wild. Being recognized from the promo before it's even landed.
yeah. So I was like, okay, maybe this is actually going to be something. And I think I was so used to just understanding rejection and like doing something and not thinking about it because it's probably not going to, be what you want. And so I think I'm more of a realist than a pessimist, but the fact that I got recognized that early kind of triggered this moment of like, okay, well, maybe this could actually turn into something big. And we were really lucky to be accepted with, all of our fans and the way the storyline was going. Everybody was really personally involved. I think our producers did a really good job of making the fans feel like they were a part of it. And in so many ways they were. They influenced a lot of the storylines based on what they loved and hated. And they had access to us. But as far as my health journey goes, I was playing the it girl. I was playing that Regina George in a drama, but I started having really bad health issues, and I couldn't. We didn't understand why. So I was gaining weight. I had a little bit of depression. I had brain fog. I was fatigued. And in that role, you're supposed to look a certain way, and I didn't. I started not fitting that box, and with flashbacks, it makes it more complicated just on on the production side. You don't look
Mm.
like the one that you did a year ago. And that was complicated. And I think I felt a lot of shame there, and I didn't have an explanation. So it wasn't like, oh, I have this and this is why this is happening. I also couldn't figure it out. So I didn't have something to share. And that
You
was really
talked
hard.
about your PCOS journey and the process of getting diagnosed, which,
Yeah.
seemed like a real trek. I mean, and going through that in real time under public scrutiny, under the public eye, it's a lot for anyone, let alone a teenager.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. And I think that's where the double-edged sword comes in, where I have access to everybody all over the world, which is great, but then there's a lot of negative opinions, and how that, translates to a teenager is not great. I think I had a really good support system, but yeah, I saw 17 gynecologists, ones that said, I'm just a glutton, I'm eating too much, or I'm just young, my period will regulate, I'm overreacting, or it's because of stress, or it's, there was always an excuse,
Mhm.
and really no blood test, no, real way of figuring out or trying to diagnose what I had. It was very much just I was getting dismissed. And a friend of mine was like, "Why don't you try an endocrinologist?" And I went to this endocrinologist, and she listened. She was the first doctor to truly listen. And she was like, I think you've got PCOS. I was like, what is that? I had never heard of that before. So polycystic ovary syndrome is a hormone disease. It's kind of a silly name because a lot of women don't have cysts. And it's a little tricky to diagnose, but doctors are becoming more and more aware of the symptoms, and how to connect the dots. It can mimic a lot of other things, and I think that's part of the reason. But as a lot of women know, there are not a lot of clinical studies. There's not a lot of research into how our body really works. And there's another layer here. When I was
Mhm.
15, I had my first seizure. And I never talked about my epilepsy until maybe about a year and a half ago, 2 years
Oh,
ago.
wow.
I always had this feeling that it was connected to my period, or connected to just in general my hormones, but I didn't have a way of proving it. After I had my son, my hormones regulated for the first time in my life, which happens to a
Mm.
very small number of women. And because my periods were regulating, I realized that if I had a seizure, it was around my period. And so we were able to kind of prove that when my hormones were fluctuating and I wasn't getting a lot of sleep, or there was a lot of stress involved, that I was much more likely to have a seizure. And this actually leads into Hippie Water. And I'm sorry, I keep talking. I'm going to give you room
No,
to
I
ask
definitely
questions,
wanna
but
hear about Hippie Water because I was wondering what the origin of that particular business was, but it
yeah.
stemmed directly out of your health issues.
Yeah. So I love hosting. I love celebrating. I love, gathering with friends, game nights, family, you name it. I have an entertaining cookbook that I released. It really is a huge part of my life. It's a joy. And alcohol is just naturally a part of that. You open a
Mm.
bottle of wine, you open a champagne, have a Taco Tuesday night, you make your favorite margarita. It's just you go to work, like a work event, and there's open bar, weddings, you name it. It's just a part of our ritual of celebrating, or socializing, or decompressing. It's just kind of always there. And I it was kind of the last string, because I didn't want to lose this social aspect. And I realized it was the last string I was pulling because it felt like a loss, not necessarily because of alcohol itself, but that social aspect of I'm not feeling the same way when I'm doing the things that I love. And
Mhm.
so I was really frustrated, and I was trying different things. Sparkling water wasn't cutting it. I was venting to a friend of mine, and she was kind of like, "Well, have you heard of cannabis beverages?" And I had no idea that you could even drink it, and
Mhm.
I'd never considered it. Um, I had never really considered cannabis in general. I had had gummies in the past and really hated that experience, especially at the time where I was considering this. I had a toddler. I was like, I'm not going to smoke. And so I just, kind of put it out of my head, and then decided, well, maybe I should try these. And I absolutely hated what was on the market. They were either
Mhm.
too sugary and I couldn't have them because of PCOS, or it had like a terrible aftertaste, or it was like bong water, and that was just not going to happen for me. It was just not something that I would have, chosen, especially on a regular basis. And so my friend was like, well, why don't we make one? This
Mm.
friend happens to be an incredible food scientist. She has been
Well,
coined
that's
the
handy to
beverage
have a friend
queen.
who's a food scientist.
Absolutely. She was coined the beverage queen by Taco Bell because she spearheaded their entire beverage line. She's worked and developed products for Nestle, McDonald's, you name it. She uses cannabis on a regular basis, and she was never able to really make a product for herself that she would actually drink and use. And
And so this is a hemp-derived
yes,
THC beverage, Hippie Water.
yes. So hemp is an interesting world in itself. So we are, most people know it as Delta 9. So we are hemp derived THC social beverage. I had a lot of standards here. If I I never really put my name on a product, and I have done that on purpose. I really always want to make sure that my relationship with the people that follow me is a relationship built on trust and
So did you not
authenticity.
do any endorsements during your time on Pretty Little
Not
Liars?
really. I mean,
Mm.
I supported some products that I liked, but I didn't really do that. And I think at the time it was so new that it it wasn't necessarily something that was always, that I we were always getting calls for. It was like still
Mhm.
very in the middle of social media and your big campaigns. And by the time this came around, yes, those were there, but I never found a partnership that I actually really loved. And so if I was like, if I'm going to do this, it has to be the right product.
Right.
And so we have under 30 calories. We are low sugar. Our fruit juice or our sweetness comes from fruit juice, so no sugar added. Comes from Italy. It's the highest quality organic hemp, and it's low dose, so it's 5 milligrams. And so the whole point behind this is that it mimics that feeling that I got from alcohol, where after one can, for the most part, everybody feels like they've had their first glass of wine or their first cocktail. And you can either leave it there, have a great night's sleep, wake up refreshed, or you can stack them and have more of that social experience and do the same
Mhm.
thing. It was the first thing that I had found that really didn't have a compromise.
Mm.
And
Interesting.
yeah, and so I love that. I overnight became a CEO, and that was very strange. It felt
And what year was Hippie Water founded?
so we started taking it seriously in, I think the end of 2021, maybe the beginning of 2022. But we launched last year. So
Oh, okay.
we're still a baby. We're a year old, and it's been an amazing journey.
So you're living the startup life right now.
I am, and that is a very unique world. Uh,
Yeah.
y- yeah, it's a lot, and I think in the beginning I really felt this feeling of imposter syndrome, um, and then I realized, oh, nobody really knows exactly what they're doing either. And I kinda got a crash course of what beverage is in general, CPG in general is just another animal,
And as somebody
and
who watches a lot of Shark Tank and watches a lot of, like, people trying to launch their new product
yes,
lines, like, retail is hard. So what route are you all going? Are you doing direct to consumer? Are you
yeah,
trying to get on shelves? Are you on shelves right now? What's the plan?
we are. So, we initially thought that we would really just be sold online. The difference between hemp and marijuana is really nothing. Molecularly, they're basically the same thing. They're sister plants. So the THC is the same, the CBD is the same. It's just a separate plant. And so we have a loophole under the federal bill, so the farm bill. And because of that, we operate like a normal business and we're federally legal. So still a sort of a state by state law where there are some states that don't accept us, but for the most part, we're everywhere. So yeah, we can ship directly to your door. We're in Total Wine. We're in top 10 liquors, a lot of really big liquor chains that you know well. So, you can either yeah, order us on your phone from Total Wine right to your door, or go in, grab something on your way out while you're grabbing a pack of beer. It feels very familiar, and so we can sell in bars and restaurants and liquor stores, and it really does mimic that same feeling, that same social experience. But it's it's very unique, and I definitely chose a hard side of business, a hard side of CPG, and it's regulated. So it's not
Yeah,
easy.
doubly so.
Yes, but it's worth it. And I think that's the thing for me is that if I didn't love it, if I didn't believe in the product, this would
Right,
just be, you know,
right,
I don't
especially
want
at
to
a
say not
startup
worth
where
it, but
you
hard.
Right. Especially at a startup where you need that like renewable source of hustle.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the passion is there. And I think, I've become a venture partner with a company called Hot Start Ventures, and it's based on celebrity founded companies. That's what we're looking for.
Interesting. And
So I
that's
think
such a booming space to be in too, of
yeah,
folks who come from the traditional TV and film side and, are creating their
yeah,
own lifestyle brands and then physical brands like you are. At
yeah.
the time when you were ending Pretty Little Liars, you were probably about 19 at the time, right?
Yes.
The last
Yeah,
season?
that
Okay.
sounds
Like,
right. Yeah.
what did you envision for yourself then? Could you have seen what you're doing now back then?
Absolutely not. If you told me at that time or a little younger that I was going to have a cannabis business, I would have laughed at you. I was the good girl. I signed Dare like that, but instead I was drinking alcohol. It's
I
kind of
mean,
funny.
Dare had a chokehold on all of us back then.
It's very, very true. I never would have imagined that I would be
Yeah.
here. Never would have imagined that I would be going into the corporate
Had you
side
thought
of
about
anything.
producing, back then? Like, when you were thinking about the
Oh yeah.
next step? Okay. So
Yeah.
you
As
had
far as
considered
my vision for
producing.
Hollywood.
All right,
Yeah.
interesting. So walk us through that journey, like, post Pretty Little Liars.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. To your point, I was at the stage where after Pretty Little Liars, I was like, I want to create. I don't want to just be in front of the camera. I want to be behind the camera. How am I going to do that? It was my first time really getting back into pilot season
Mm.
and getting used to, just a part of the industry that I hadn't really been involved in a while, and I was really excited about it. I was living in Colorado at the time, and we took a drive out to California for pilot season. My husband and I decided, maybe this is the time to try and get pregnant. I had PCOS. It's probably going to take me a while. Let's just kind of, have fun. I'm not necessarily like attached to a project yet. So we'll just kind of see. We thought it would take us a year and a half. It took us 1 month.
Oh, wow.
It just happened really fast. And 2 weeks later, the world shut down. It was COVID.
Oh, boy. So early 2020. So
Yeah.
that was a real trip. I mean, I have friends who were pregnant around that time who had kids in 2020. I mean, what you envision as like your perfect scenario of,
Yeah.
delivery and all of that is real different.
Very different. I had lots of friends that were already pregnant or farther along when COVID started, and they had to give birth without their partners. And I cannot even imagine. We were lucky. We were able to kind of hibernate, and my husband was allowed with me in the delivery room, thank goodness. But it was a very different experience. And, you know, I can't really even complain because it could have looked a lot differently or it could have looked a lot different. But still, there's certain things that you feel like you missed out on, and that's okay. Healthy kid, that's what matters most. But because we've decided to only have one, that traditional like baby shower, celebrating with your friends, all of those
All the
things.
usual milestones.
Yeah, it's different, and I have amazing family members who made those experiences as normal as they could have. But when you
That's
think
nice.
about like celebrating with all of your friends and everything, it's just
Right.
it's a different picture.
Right. I
But
mean, I have two kids, and my younger one turned one right around the time the world shut down. And it's like, yeah, there are all these normal milestones that you think you're going to do, like big birthday parties and getting
yeah,
together. And it all looked very different for a couple of years there.
yeah, it did. And I was lucky to work though. I did a movie and actually two movies in Vancouver, I think 2021, and
Mm.
they
Oh,
were
so
very
you also
cute.
got the like COVID filming experience.
I did.
That sounded intense with like the zones of,
Yes.
COVID protection. Like, what was that
And
like?
well, Vancouver was really strict, and as they should be, but you go through a 2-week quarantine when you get into
Mm.
Vancouver. And that worked out for us really well. But they're very strict. It's like every week I think somebody came to check on us, and we took a test, and then being on set, we had the visors and we had the mask, and everybody was really separate. And I'm thankful for that. I'm glad that they took those safety measures, but it does feel a little silly when you just end up taking it off and standing, right next to each other, and for that, couple minutes while you're filming, that has to go away. Um,
How
but
many COVID era projects did you do?
I think really only one, because I shot a movie in 2023, and by that time it was pretty much those
Like
regulations weren't.
reopened,
You got
you know?
tested, but it wasn't, you weren't wearing masks
Right, right.
or anything like that. So yeah, really only one project. But I mean, we were filming for about 4 months. So it was 4 months of that, and it was fun, but it did look very different. And I was just, I think, so happy to be working.
Mm,
And that
yeah.
was, I think, the general feeling on set was like, we're so lucky and happy to be here making a
It's been a
project.
weird 5 or 6 years for the business between the
It has.
pandemic, between the writer's strike and the actor's strike. Oh,
Yeah.
and I did wanna ask you something. I was watching, your podcast interview on, I think it was Podco, and, something that you mentioned I thought was really interesting, about how, obviously, you would receive residuals from Freeform, from Pretty Little Liars, but then when the
Yeah.
show got a second life on Netflix and was gaining steam there, by the rules, the contract rules there, actors
Yeah.
don't get residuals from things that are licensed out. But I feel like I heard you say that it changed after the strike and the new contract?
Yeah, no new contracts, but so yeah, that was a little unfortunate. So we had definitely passed the episode count for syndication, and we got sold to Netflix. The actors didn't know until it was finished, so you can read between the lines there. And there were no streaming laws yet, so SAG hadn't
Mm,
put anything in place. They, on paper, didn't do anything that they shouldn't have done. There were just no laws to protect us. And so syndication just completely went away. It just wasn't something that we were eligible for. It was on Netflix for, I think, 3 years. And Netflix at the time wasn't giving any residuals. It went to HBO Max right after that. And we get residuals from them. I'm not sure, to be honest, contractually what the difference was. But after this recent strike, Netflix has to, other things that are on Netflix that I've done, I get residuals for them every
interesting.
now and then. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely not the same.
Interesting to see how things are evolving as everybody tries to, get aligned and catch up with the streaming age.
Yeah,
Um,
I think on the producing side, it's also interesting, trying to sell things to Netflix and Amazon and streamers in general. The way that they pay out, the structure that they have now is so different than anything we would have seen even just 10
mm,
years ago.
what's the biggest difference you're seeing?
Um, mainly payout, the way that they buy. They kind of got to set their own rules before
Right.
they had their own guidelines essentially. A lot of products or a lot of things that get sold to streaming platforms have a different type of payout. So instead of getting your sum, it'll be, kind of segmented into 4-year payouts or quarterly payouts. And it's just not the norm, like when you're selling something like you would theatrically.
Mm,
So that's just something that you have to take into account. But I think structurally, when you're going to make your own project, it's kind of like, do you just scrape by and try and get the money and make something and then try and sell it? Do you try and make something for proof of concepts and hope that somebody gets attached? And then are you trying to maybe do a half and half? But a lot of these streaming platforms will say that they're interested. You'll go film it, and halfway through, they'll decide if they actually want it or not.
mm,
So there's multiple ways of doing it, but I think we're all in the same boat where it's like, how do we just make something
right.
instead of waiting for it to come to us?
Right. Just making something seems like a small miracle these days.
Exactly. So how do we make that happen? How do we make it something that we want, that we're proud of, that we want to see, that is, yeah, I just feel like it's very separated. You're either doing that or it's an insanely big budget project that truly doesn't need it, doesn't
Mm.
actually need that budget. And I think that is, I don't know how sustainable that is. I don't know how much more of that we're going to see.
So what are you
Um,
producing now? Tell us about what you've got in the pipeline.
yeah, I can't expound really, but there's a really fun rom com that we've been working on for a
I
while
love it. I love
and
that the rom-com is returning. Like, give
coming
me
back.
all the rom-coms.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a great production company attached. We're waiting for some answers currently, but that should get filmed next year. Crossing our fingers that it actually gets filmed in Greece. They've got those tax credits, so we want to take advantage of that. And, writing that way too is also fun. It's like, where can we actually write a story that it's possible to film in some fun place thanks to their tax credits. So that you think of those things too. Um, there is an awesome horror film called Remothered. It's video EP, and I'm really really excited about that. So that will be also most likely happening next year. But sneak peek that is going to be released soon to the press, and I'm really really excited about that.
Yeah, nice.
The project that I'm editing right now is a really fun comedy horror that came across my desk, and I was so excited about it because it's actually about tech. It's about a tech startup and crazy things that happen while they're on their family, which is really just their corporate retreat, and
A,
a
a
lot of
tech
it.
horror project
Yeah,
sounds very of the moment.
absolutely. And I would like to think that we don't have that type of culture in Hippie Water in our own company, but our COO and my co-CEO have worked for a couple of companies that they it's going to be cathartic for them. They're like, I've been in situations like that. So I think a lot of Silicon Valley is going to enjoy this one.
All right, very cool. And with your new Substack, I'm so interested to know what kind of community are you looking to build? What kind of issues do you want to focus on mainly?
Yeah, I mean, so much of what I am passionate about now is empowering women in different ways. And unfortunately, women's health has become very political. You can't really get away from it. And so I think it's shown me with my podcast how important it is to just put stories out there that matter. And so a lot of what you'll see on my Substack are not only just supporting women in general in women's health and especially with mental health and research. It's also just about my personal journey because at the end of the day, I think those are those are really effective. When you tell your own journey, somebody else relates to it somewhere and
Mhm.
it makes them feel less alone. And that has always been my mission. And that, bleeds into women in business. And now I have a unique perspective on women in business and not only my story, but the stories that I've heard from other women, just, walking into a boardroom and meeting someone else introduce you as an executive because they think you're the assistant just by the fact that you're the only female,
In 2025.
in 2025, yeah, that's the thing that happens all the time. And you're also seeing so many incredible women on the flip side funding companies, starting companies, and instead of asking for permission, they're just doing it. They're building it, and they're building companies that are not only extremely profitable, but they're also empathetic and they're making a
Mhm.
difference. They're making the world better at the same time and solving problems. And that's what's incredibly important. There's also motherhood. It's a big part of my life. I'm obsessed with my son. He's
How
almost
old's
5.
your kiddo now? Oh,
Yeah,
that's a
he's
great
almost
age.
5.
That's
It's a really
awesome.
fun age. Yeah. And, there's the reality of being a mom and how hard that is. And I have quite a few, I guess, careers you could say. And with that, it comes a lot of challenges, and motherhood looks different on everybody. And I think telling my version of that will help other women who are working moms feel less alone and know that, that work life balance is almost impossible.
Oh
And
yeah,
really
for
just,
sure.
yeah, being real with that, it doesn't make you a bad mom, all of those things that come with being a woman in general and fertility. There's so many women out there that have dealt with that and making sure that that door is open. Um, and then food, PCOS is a huge one. You'll hear me talk about PCOS all the time. And with that comes, diet. At this time, what I eat looks completely different than what I ate 15 years ago. I was so focused on salads and, everything low fat and all of these things that we were taught that was supposed to keep you healthy. And for PCOS, for women, it's not always like that. And I had to completely change my diet. Now I'm low carb, medium fat, high protein. And how does low impact work out? Changed my life. It's it's a lot, but I think they all relate to each other. And so I'm passionate about entertaining and food, and why not include that? Because at the end of the day, this is all based around what makes me a woman and how I live my life. And I know there are women out there. So as much as it's a lot of topics, it's also very relatable because every part of that journey makes up my life, and it definitely does for other women. And we can connect on it. We can be honest about it, and we can share our opinions without the shame, because those things all exist together.
Mm. And your media presence is, you've got the podcast, which is both audio and in video form on your YouTube. Substack is, are you thinking it'll be a lot of text, a lot of video, or how are you thinking about
Yeah,
about formulating it?
great question. A bit of both. I love to write, and so I love the article post aspect of Substack. So it'll be a lot of my thoughts, long format and short format. There'll be a lot more lives like this. I love talking to women like this, or just anybody like this. It's not just reserved for women. And I think that's the thing: is women in the mood is mainly, obviously, about women within the mood. And I also don't want to isolate that. There's incredible men out there that are just as important to hear from. And I think this gives me an opportunity to be involved with other things. And I think that's really fun too. I think Substack is a really good place for lots of quick thoughts and chats that matter. And it's just another way to connect, but it will be different. Women in the New, my podcast, will live on Substack as well. But I think it's an extra element. It's a how can we dig deeper, basically. Yeah.
And when you're thinking about building, your own brand, which is really multifaceted now, between the work you're still doing in the industry with the producing and directing, and then also with, the Substack and all of the issues that you're looking to get into, it's like a very like goop-like, sort of empire that looks like you're looking to build. I mean, do you have like a template for success?
That's a great question. I mean, I do. I think ultimately, even though there's lots of things changing all of the time, I not only want to look back in 10 years and see that I built something that I really love and I really believe in, but I think it's also about empowering people. At the end of the day, I want to build something and leave, this world better than it was, before. And I hope that I can make a positive impact. And that is my goal. So when I'm choosing, employees for my company, when I'm choosing our next product, when I'm choosing the next thing that I'm investing in, the next project that I'm producing or starring in, I want to make sure that it's something I'm passionate about that will leave a lasting impact for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
That is my really soft outline. Of course, there's more specific things. How do you run a company successfully? What does it look like for the future? What kind of mom do I want to be? We all fail our kids somehow. they'll all be a therapy for something we did.
I'm like, what 20 years from now, what are they going to bring to their therapist? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But trying my best to make sure that I'm also someone that he'll be proud of. So I think it's always striving for the best, but knowing that that's also somewhat impossible. I just want to be able to always pivot and always grow. And that's kind of, I guess, kind of a vague answer to your question, but I think ultimately it's always evolving, and that's okay. I just want to make sure that it's all driven by the right things.
Yeah. And, we write a lot about the state of the TV business here. And obviously, like we've talked about, it's been a tough couple of years for writers and producers and actors. How much of the economic climate in the industry has impacted your move to expand, to become a business owner and to open the Substack?
I would be lying if I said it wasn't. It absolutely does. I encourage a lot of my friends who are in the industry to some capacity to look to do other things. Not because that is our ideal, but because not only is it necessary, but it's also fulfilling. I was looking, I wasn't necessarily looking to start a company, but you get to a point where you're like, I don't know what's coming next. I can't rely on anything. And now I have a kid, and now it's not just me that I'm supporting. And so what does that look like? If there's another pandemic and we don't have work, if there's, something else that comes along and I can't do what I love to do, what does that look like? What's next? And it's not about choosing one or the other. And I feel like there are a lot of people that feel like if it's not this, then it's nothing. And that's not true. Because I now know how many synergies I have in different career paths, it it like feels a different joy that I didn't know existed. And so if you asked me 10 years ago that this is what it would look like, I still wouldn't believe you. But now that I have taken that initial risk, I couldn't imagine it any other way.
Mm.
And because our business is so unpredictable, and it has always been,
Mhm.
it's it's fulfilling to know that this isn't the only path,
There are other
and
avenues.
that
Yeah.
there are other avenues, and that I'm capable of other things. And I think we all are. Um, but it's kind of been I think the thing that pushed me
Mhm.
to as well. If everything was going great and I was just, we were just filming everything all the time and it was one thing after another, I probably wouldn't have done this. Not only
Probably
just
wouldn't have had the
based on
time.
time. Yeah, exactly. And so, it is a double-edged sword, but I think as long as I have an outlet to create, that's what's great about producing. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be in it or the lead. It's still something creative. It's still telling a story, and it's still, you know, furthering my career in that section. And that's what I care about. As long
Mhm.
as I have my hand in it to some degree, that is fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
And I think it looks like that for a lot of actors, but just in general, a lot of people in the industry from all sides.
I'm curious what you make of the new route for young actors. It just seems so much harder to break into the industry now. I mean, it's always been a tough industry, like you said, but it seems so much harder now more than ever. And so, a lot of folks kind of go through the content creator route, either through an Instagram or Substack or TikTok presence. But I also imagine that it's kind of treacherous terrain for like a young teenage woman to have to navigate all of that as they're trying to start out. What do you make of that?
I get asked a lot, how should I get into the industry? Like, how do I get an agent? All of those things. And I always say, like, I'm sort of the wrong person to ask because I've been in the business for so long. Getting into the industry is so different now than it was back then. And my advice is always the content creation route.
Mhm.
And a lot of actors are opposed to it. And I think it's partly because the ones that are already actors never thought that it's something that they would have to do. And putting yourself out there like that feels really unnatural because usually you're playing a character. Usually it's in an audition room, not in front of the world. And it feels really daunting to put your own self there.
Right.
And what do you post about? What do what does that
To
even
make
look like?
yourself
Nobody cares.
vulnerable to all of the internet.
Right. And almost like that feeling of like, I don't want to feel silly. I don't want to, I want to be taken seriously. And I think ultimately it could be about anything. It's just about posting something that you care about. It doesn't have to be an acting. It could be about, the plants like that you like to grow. At the end of the day, so much of what the decisions that are made on the other side are based on, what's going to sell and who's recognizable. And it it doesn't have to all look the same, but if you have an authentic following based on something and those people will watch something that you're in, that's really all you need.
Mm.
And there is a frustration I've seen on the other side with actors where it's like, well, they didn't put any time in. They didn't work for it. Like they didn't go to school for it. They didn't do those things. And that actually really upsets me. I understand where it's coming from, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same thing. And if you love your job, like if you love to be an actor, that you're no more qualified than they are. They're no more qualified. It's like we are all trying to do the same thing and now it just looks different. And so you're
Mhm.
either going to hop on board and if you can't beat them, join them. It really is that. And I think it's really just the attitude shift and and the mindset. It's not just about who's the most talented anymore, and
Mhm.
it's good and bad. But it doesn't mean that your content creator isn't talented. And I think
Mhm.
that with the mentality of a lot of actors is they're cheating. And it's like, no, they're not. They're just putting themselves out there in a different way. you know? They
When
can do
did
a
you
self-tape just
really
like you can.
it's true. When did you really feel more comfortable putting your own self out there? Like, around what part of your career, were you kind of like, okay, instead of just promoting the show, like I'm actually going to share more about my journey and see how it connects with people, especially coming from a show that had such a loyal, intense fan base, many of whom we're seeing here in this chat. So
Yeah,
thank you guys all for joining.
PCOS. That's the
Mm,
easy answer. I think because I felt so helpless during Creole Liars when it came to social media, it was finally an answer. And it was finally something that I could talk about and put a name. I could label it. And the first time I did that, I got so much incredible feedback from women.
mm,
Um, Also, a lot of women that I knew that had PCOS. And in my
mm.
head, I was like, why didn't you tell me? I could have maybe looked into it, but there's a shame around it.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of education around it still, even though more people know about it. It's still not diagnosed, as early as it should be. It's still not looked into like it should be. And so I was kind of floored by the reaction. Uh,
Mm. Yeah, you were
and
you were the first one through the wall on that.
it felt like it, and I really did. And so I was one of the early ones, regardless. And it was like, okay, well, people need this like I needed it. And so I have a platform and I have so many women that follow me. I kind of owe it to them to share this story. And I felt alone. So if I can make one person feel less alone, it's worth it. And it still felt so amazing to now have this communication, have this open line to women all over the world, not just where I happen to be in the world. And I think that was really special as well. So that was the easy answer. That's what started it. And it's like,
Mm,
what am I really losing by sharing all of this? Nothing. I'm only gaining.
mhm.
Yes, people know a lot more about me than I would have, initially anticipated, but that's great. Why do I need to hide it? I really don't. Uh, you know, there's a line, of course, where you're like, how much am I willing to share? But I mean, when I think about it, I really don't hide things. And I think that's important. There's a line there of like, what are people entitled to know? And I think
Right.
ultimately that normally comes from press. Um, and you share what you want to share. You don't have to share everything. I think it's just trying to find the audience where you know that they're not taking advantage of you. They want to know more about you in a healthy way.
Mhm.
And I try and always make sure that when I'm interviewing people on my podcast, it doesn't feel like clickbait. It doesn't feel like I'm
Mm,
trying to take advantage of them. It really is their
right.
story and what they want to share. And I'm always looking for those opportunities for it to be a conversation. And so many
Mm,
of them are in Hollywood to some capacity. And a lot of them are my friends, but there are a lot of people that I didn't initially know or didn't know well. And they're sharing intimate things about their journey that doesn't have anything to do with the entertainment industry. And I think that's awesome because then fans see them in a different way. Um, and they can relate to them in ways that they could before.
mm,
We're all women. We all deal with very similar issues.
right.
And it's nice to connect with somebody that you know of or that you admire and you feel that common ground even if you never meet them in person.
Mhm. And, speaking of people who would like to know more, we have gotten some questions during this.
Let's
Are we open to
answer.
a little Q&A?
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Okay, I'll admit the first call is coming from inside the house. We have a question from our own director of events at the Ankler, Hannah Hensler,
Amazing.
who was a huge fan of Pretty Little Liars. So excited to know that you were going to be on this live today. She would like to know which A storyline shocked you the most.
That's a great one. Mm. I think we were all really pissed when we thought Toby was A. Like collectively in our table read, we were mad about it. So Marlene in particular did this thing where she wouldn't say who the new A was, and you would either find out at the table read or if you weren't at the table read, you find out on set. And that was really frustrating. But looking back on it, I think it was great. I'm so glad that she did that. The only person that would know would be the person that was going to be A for that moment. And yeah, I just remember all of us being actually pissed at the table read. Like, no, you cannot do that. Um, and I guess maybe Ezra as well. But it was really, that was like, Toby was the first one that we were like, no, you cannot do that. You cannot do that to us. You cannot do that to the fans.
That's funny.
And then, I love our show. I love what we built, but naturally when you do that many seasons, certain things become a little more unrealistic. So, certain things that come across, you're like, are you really going to do that? And you do it. One of my favorite parts about press was so many press outlets, when we came to live with them, would have like the detective board with all the strings that are attached and who's related and, who's who. So much of it we didn't even know. We were like, I never knew that much, and I didn't even put that together. And it was fun to see people get that involved. But yeah, the short answer is we were all pissed about Toby.
All right, that's good to know. This is wonderful intel. Thank you. And we have a question from Lynn here, who jotted down a few questions on Substack notes. And for everybody who's just joined, I'm Elaine Low. I'm a writer at The Ankler, and we're here with Sasha Pieterse for the launch day of her new Substack, Sasha Says. Okay, here's a good one.
We love Lynn, by the way.
Okay, great. So let's see. Lynn's first question here is, what is a piece of advice that stuck with you forever, and how has it helped you? It's a great question.
It's a hard question, and it's a great question. I feel like I've been really lucky to get a lot of advice from a lot of different people. I've worked with some awesome people, and to pinpoint that's
very difficult. Narrow it down by, like, is there industry specific advice that you've gotten that you feel has been really helpful for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I got told by an actress that, and it seems like a no-brainer, but I think at the time it was the right thing to say to me, which was, you have to sleep at night. So no matter what you do, make sure it's something that you can live with. And I think, we have this, we don't all necessarily have this, I guess. But I think there's a lot of pressure as a woman in the industry. It's not just like the Me Too movement. It's smaller things a lot of the time, where it's like, do we want to be the squeaky wheel? Do we get labeled as difficult? Like, it's almost like, what problem do you stand up for? And you get, easily labeled as a complainer or difficult, or I feel like it's getting better, to be honest, but even just 10 years ago, it was not that way. And that piece of advice at that moment I needed, because ultimately what that meant to me at that time was that I do need to stand up for myself, and staying quiet, I would regret. And it was like, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I didn't say something. And the potential consequence wasn't worth not being a human, basically.
Right. And that's good advice
your
that
humanity
carries
first.
Across.
Exactly.
Out of work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be a person you can live with.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see if we have any other questions. Well, let's see. Well, Lynn has a lot of questions here. Here's a good one. Another question from Lynn. What's the most challenging part of traveling while working? And also, do you ever collect things from different places while you're traveling?
I travel so much, and I love traveling. Thank goodness. And it was the most difficult part. That was the part.
Yeah. What's the most challenging part of traveling while you're working?
I think trying to still do it all. I will be honest, I hate that there's Wi-Fi on planes now, because it's like I have the opportunity to actually. Yeah, exactly. Like,
before you could pop in and be like, I'm going on a plane. I won't be available.
Yeah, I'll
for
be
6
out.
hours until I'm in New York.
Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. And I'm a really good sleeper on a plane. And so it feels like I can't do that. I feel guilty. Sometimes the Wi-Fi is broken. Don't tell anybody. But I think that's it, because it's more of my own expectation on myself, where like I feel like I have to get all the same things done. But when you're dealing with time change, and you're dealing with, like, most of the time, Hendrix and Hudson, except my husband and my son, come with me. So it's like traveling with a kid. You
Yeah.
know, it just feels like a lot. It's like, how do I
Mhm.
prioritize my mental health
Yeah.
and stress level while still trying to get my to-do list done? On a plane or, on a train or like, everywhere. I think it's trying to still create some sort of normalcy while you're hopping from one place to another. Like I'll be getting up at 5 to go to the airport tomorrow. So you
Gosh.
make it work. You do what you need to do, but it's a lot. It's definitely not easy.
Where are you headed tomorrow? Is that for work?
It is Minneapolis,
Ooh.
which is fun. I actually
It'll
really love
still
it
be
there.
nice and balmy there. I say as a Midwestern gal from Chicago, like
Yes.
now's a good time to go to the Midwest before like
Before all
February.
this, yeah, yeah, exactly. My husband's from Wisconsin, so yeah,
Oh, you get it
as
then,
much as
yeah.
I love the cold and the snow, it's hard to work there. But this is a lot of fun. This is for Hippie Water. We're doing some awesome
Oh,
tastings at Top 10 Liquors, and it's actually related to women. So OHO is another female-founded cannabis-derived beverage, and together we're going to be hosting some fun girls' nights and a panel, and a lot of that will be captured on Substack. So stay tuned this weekend. We'll see more.
awesome. It's a good time for you to have a Substack and be able to go live whenever you want then.
Yeah, perfect timing. Some intentional, some not. So I'm glad that this worked out. Glad it worked
Well,
out.
I have certainly kept you on for long enough. Thank you so much for your time,
Okay.
Sasha.
Thank you. It was honestly an honor. I love you guys. I love what you just what you talk about. The fact that you guys are also so open. So we appreciate you. You are
Oh,
a window into the industry and all the chaos and stuff that comes with it. So
yeah, well, it is
it
a
is really fun.
tumultuous time, so we're just trying to be a beacon and help people figure out how to do their jobs smarter. And
Yeah,
we kind of feel like if we can be your like smart friend at an industry cocktail party, then we've done our job.
exactly. And you are. So you're doing that.
Oh, well, thank you for taking the time to share so much about your life and career and everything. And yeah, this is
Thank
a
you.
really exciting next chapter for you. So
Appreciate
congratulations.
it. Appreciate it. Hope we talk again soon.
Yeah. All right. Bye,
All
everyone. Thanks for
right.
joining us.
Bye.